Again, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to finish Chapter 15. It is a chapter of writing in psychographic mediums. We already covered just about everything. The last one left for us to finish today is the prescient mediums. We cover mechanical mediums, intuitive mediums, semi-mechanical mediums, inspired mediums. If anyone has any question regarding any one of those types of mediumship, we are open to answer any questions, but we're going to move forward to the last one that we have to finish the chapter today. And which it is prescient mediums, item 184. Are you good to read, Zoraida?
Yes, of course. Okay. Prescient mediums, 184. A presentiment is a vague intuition about future events. Certain individuals possess this faculty to different degrees of development. It may be regarded as a type of second sight that enables them to see the consequences of the present in the natural chain of events. But they are also often the result of concealed communications, and it is particularly in these instances that the individuals so gifted may be called prescient mediums, who comprise a variety of inspired medium.
Thank you, Zoraida.
You're welcome.
So it's a very, very short presentation of the so-called prescient mediums, because, as Kardec put in the very last sentence, it comprises a variety of inspired mediums, and you already covered inspired mediums. It says very something interesting. The prescient is a vague intuition about the future event. And as I have said last month, we're going to make a distinction in the two words intuition and inspiration. And I'm not sure what the dictionary says, but following the doctrine and following what Emmanuel has told us, I'm going to use the word inspiration when it comes from a third party in our prayers, in our works, dealing with the spirits. We always be inspired to receive the thoughts of the good spirits of our guardian angels, which means from a third party, someone else who inspires, who projects their thoughts for us, and we follow if we choose. Of course, we have free will. And we can use the word intuition when it comes from ourselves. So a prescient is a vague intuition about future events, something that very, very often come for the individuals who have that ability. It's not a common thing. Not all of us have that intuition of future events, but some individuals does have it. And of course, we're going to accept that ability of individuals who have developed that, not a giving, not a preferential treatment from God to provide something to one and not to another, right? So these individuals has this ability of different degrees. It's very important. For some to be very, very, very vague, and for someone to be very direct and objective. Most of the time, they will have that vague intuition, the presentiment something's about to happen. And it's only after the event happened that you'll be able to say with certainty, wow, I did have that presentiment. Indeed, those thoughts crossed my mind before it happened. Very often, the individual not even going to talk about it. But once it happens, say, oh, it's strange that I thought about that. I kind of predicted this to happen. And very often things that have nothing to do with the life of those individuals themselves. It's something pretty much outside of the scope or their familiarities. And individuals have those kind of, again, intuitions. But behind of that intuition, there is also another possible component that spirits were able to inspire, to input their thoughts in the mind of those mediums to have that presentiment of something that is about to happen. This ability, the Kardec says, see the consequences of the present and the natural change of events is much better understood by the spirits when they are free from the limitations of the impositions of the flesh upon us, having removed some of the veils that covers our ability to see things with a much greater vision. Spirits without the flesh may have that ability to look at the present events, what's happening right now, and be able to have, by logic, a conclusion of how it's going to proceed, what's going to happen next. Pretty much like watching those stupid soap operas that you watch the first chapter and you know exactly how it's going to be the last one. Most of us can do that. Soap operas are meant to give that, right? Or those silly Hollywood commercial movies that you watch 15 minutes of it and you can go home because you already know what's going to happen in the end. We have the ability to do that. You have the intellectual ability to do that. In the spiritual world, the spirits, we will have the ability to do the same thing by looking what's happening today, what we are doing today, and looking at the past, how things progressed, and make an analogy of how things progressed in the past, be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. And some mediums may have the ability to receive those thoughts from spirits. So there's two things over here. There is the intuitive ability that these mediums themselves have that ability. And on top of that, they may receive the inspiration, the thoughts of spirits who are able to making use of intelligence, of understand of history, predict the natural cascade of events, what's going to happen in the future. So there is no magic in this ability. Questions? Okay, so now we start with the chapter 16, which in the very first part, I think is something very important to us to understand about mediums, about mediumship. And then the second part of it, when it comes to the synoptic table of different varieties of mediums, and the variety of writing mediums is mostly basically reading, I'm sorry. There is nothing much to explain there because primarily we see most of those varieties already. Kardec here, as the word says, a synoptic, just put a table of everything that is already talked to us about in the past. I think it's a good opportunity to review and to have questions of the things that we did not understand well there. But the very first part, the special aptitudes of medium, I think we can gather some pretty good information here.
Okay. Okay, begin.
Yes.
Special mediums, special aptitudes of mediums, synoptic table of different varieties of mediums, and varieties of writing mediums. Special aptitudes of mediums, 185. Besides the mediumistic categories already enumerated, mediumship offers infinite varieties that include what may be called special mediums, those gifted with still undefined particular aptitudes, apart from the qualities and knowledge of the manifesting spirit. The nature of the resulting communication is always related to the nature of the spirit and bears the stamp of its degree of evolution, its wisdom or its ignorance. But in spite of similarities among spirits of the same degree on the hierarchical scale, there is undeniable a tendency for each spirit to occupy itself with a particular specialty. Spirits who produce raps, for example, rarely depart from physical manifestations, while among those who provide intelligent manifestations, there are spirits who are poets, musicians, painters, scholars, moralists, physicians, etc. We are referring to spirits of an average order because in a more elevated degree of the hierarchy, the aptitudes blend into the unity of perfection. However, alongside the aptitude of the spirit itself is the aptitude of the medium, the instrument that may be either more appropriate and flexible or less so, and in which the spirit discovers individual qualities that we cannot always appraise. Let us make, okay.
So when you're dealing with mediumships and especially with communications, especially as this chapter mostly covers psychographic messages. But again, to all of them, the most important things, the number one thing that we need to consider is the one doing the work, the medium. The medium is the one doing the work. The medium is the one imprinting its thoughts in a message, or any other work in a music, or in a paint, or whatever this doing is the medium doing, I'm sorry, is the spirit. Please correct me if I say that again, wrong again. Is the spirit, the discarnate spirit that is doing the work. Is the discarnate spirit doing the work of writing, of painting, of producing music. And because that spirit, discarnate spirit, is now in the spiritual world without a physical body, it needs an instrument to express its abilities, to express its thoughts, to put those thoughts in words, in a piece of paper, in a canvas, as a painter, or anything that it's done. He needs that instrument. That instrument is the medium. So number one, the spirit, the quality of the spirits, the intention of the spirit, the abilities of the spirit, number one. Now, us here incarnate use instruments, but very often our instruments is an inanimate object. Mediums are not. Mediums is an instrument of the spirit, or at the hands of the spirit, but it's not an inanimate object. It's a human being who has its own past, its own history, its own aptitudes, who has its own intelligence, it has its own free will, it has its own moral and sometimes the lack of it, qualities, and has aptitudes as well, right? And those aptitudes are very often acquired through past experiences. Again, I like always to remember that not a gift. No one is privileged to have this or that ability. Someone work to conquer those abilities. The nature of the resulting communication is always related to the nature of the spirit and bear the stamp of its degree of evolution. So again, number one is the spirit. So then the quality of the resulting work expresses the quality of the spirit, of its moral qualities, of its aptitudes, of its intelligence, of its intentions. Spirit first. But in spite of similarities among the spirits of the same degree of hierarch- hierarchical scale, there is undeniably a tendency of each spirit to occupy itself with a particular specialty. This is important. If you go to the Spirit's book and go to a chapter that deals with spiritual hierarchy, right? Kardec makes a hierarchy of spirit, divides in three orders: the imperfect spirit, the um, the good spirits, and the perfect, and then the pure spirits or the perfected spirits. And in the third order, the imperfect spirits, he subdivided that in several classes. The frivolous spirits, the false scholars, the natural spirits, the boisterous and disruptive spirits. And I am reading the book. Don't think that I remember those things. Just let this clear here. In the second order, what I like to believe that most of us are here, right? Yes, the benevolent spirits, the scholarity of spirits, the wise spirit, the superior spirits, and in the very last order, the pure spirits. This is a class by itself. There is no subdivision, right? If you make the analogy, let's say, with high school, and we take the kids who come in the first year of high school, just out of middle school, there is a commonality among them. There is a lot of things that is very common amongst them, that is more common among them than the last year of high school students. The ones are closer to college, and the ones that are first year, they are closer still to the middle school. Among those students, there is tremendous commonality. There is a very powerful, dominant common denominator. And yet, they are quite different individually one from another. Their likes and dislikes, their experience, where they come from to reach that first year of high school. There's tremendous variation there. One you like sports, the one you like the arts, one will be in the biological sciences, the other will be more like in the social sciences, one would like more the the visual learning, and the one will be more of the reading learning. There is varieties amongst them, although there is the commonality that places them in the same class. So the same thing with spirits, and that's what Kardec's saying here, that although they belong to the same class, as we just saw what I read over here from the Spirit's book, they may be, let's say, wise spirits, or may be disturbing spirits. There is variety in each individual. And that individuality, that the things that they like more, the things they are more attracted to, you know, the spirit who produces raps, for example, are apart from physical manifestations, while others who provide intelligence manifestation, there are spirits who are poets, musicians, painters, scholars, moralists, physicians, etc. So the same way that in the high school there is the students who like more the biological sciences, the other one more the physical sciences, the one who like more the sports, but they all belong to that same class, right? And of course, you're talking about spirits in still in progress. Because when you come to the last order, the spirit, the pure spirits, then you have reached the apex of that pyramid, the very top. So there's varied variations there, although each one is an individual, although each one is one personality and has one personality, individual from one another. But the common denominator, the commonality about them is much, 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 much greater. And the difference between is much, 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 much smaller. Because if we imagine a pyramid at its basis is wide, there is tremendous room for variation, and the very apex is the pin of a needle, the, right? The top of a needle. There is not much room for variation or reach perfection. How can perfection be different from one another, right? It's something that is extremely abstracted to us. We cannot comprehend where we're at, but I can understand that when you get to the very back, the very tip of the pyramid, there is tremendous amount of commonality. If you can imagine the bottom of the pyramid be made of hundreds of stones, the very top is made of perhaps a fraction of a third of one single stone. Maybe that is a bad analogy for us to understand. So Kardec puts over here, we're referring to spirits of an every order because in more elevated degree of hierarchy, the aptitudes blend into the unity of perfection. Right? I think that's very important for us to understand. Then he says, however, alongside the aptitude of the spirits is the aptitude of the medium, the instrument that may be either more appropriate and flexible or less so, and in which the spirits discover individual qualities that we cannot always appraise. This is very important. If the spirits of the same class, just to narrow things down, have different likes and dislikes, aptitudes, preferences, and that spirit is seeking to an instrument to express him or herself, who would they look for as an instrument? Would be a medium with similar likings, right? The spirit will seek the most appropriate instrument to express itself, the one that would be more comparable with him or herself. That will happen naturally by affinity in itself. To go back to the high school students, and we imagine the first day of class of new students coming in together. Nobody knows one another. They come from different part of the country, different middle schools. And the very first of school, they are strangers to one another. You give John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, because I just got a message over here. You have been signed out because you are currently signed in on another device. So
I don't know.
I just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just scared me for a minute. Sorry, guys. So if the spirit is seeking to express him or herself, it's the work that he wants to produce, is going to look for the best instrument to do that work. And again, I lost my thought here for the message. For the high school student, again, very first day of school, a bunch of strangers. They don't know one another. They come from different middle schools, from different states in the country. They're always strange to one another. Give a week, and you see clumping forming, groups forming. In the same classroom, they would 4 or 5 would join together, making a little group here, 4 and 5, you're making a group there. How does it happen? It happens to this affinity. They have commonalities. Although they all belong to the same class, they have things in common that makes them group together. This same affinity will happen between mediums and spirits. That they have affinities, they have commonalities that attracts them towards one another naturally. Or it can be also that the spirit is looking for it and seeking for it and finds it, right? But naturally, those things will happen just as it happens in a school, on a bunch of strangers, in a place of work, in a big company that has a lot of employees. You see the groups form, and you sometimes imagine how these individuals work in different departments, and they have almost no commonality in the work that they do, but they group together in the cafeteria and they plan to go out together to, after work parties. They join together because they have that affinity. Same thing will happen among discarnate and incarnate spirits. The spirit will look for the best instrument to express him or herself, and very often it will happen naturally by this affinity of interests. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, let's continue. Let us make a comparison. A very skillful musician has several violins at his disposal, which to the ordinary person all appear to be good instruments, but among which the consummate artist can tell a big difference, perceiving extremely delicate nuances that will enable him to choose some and reject others, nuances that he perceives by intuition without being able to define them. The same applies to mediums. Despite the equality of their state as to mediumistic potency, a spirit will nevertheless prefer one over another according to the type of communications it wishes to transmit. As a result, we see, for example, the mediums under the influence of a spirit who writes admirable poetry, even though,
Oh, sorry.
Mhm. Even though they themselves have never been able to make verse in their ordinary state. Others, on the contrary, are normally poets, but as mediums, they only write prose in spite of their desire to write poems. The same happens with paintings, music, etc. There are mediums who, without possessing scientific knowledge, are most capable of receiving communications of this nature. Others are more skillful at historical studies. Others more easily serve as interpreters for moralist spirits. In a word, whatever the medium's flexibility may be, the communications he or she receives most generally have a special stamp. Furthermore, there are those who never leave a determined circle of ideas, and when they try to do so, they only receive incomplete, laconic, and often erroneous communications. Besides issue of aptitudes, spirits also prefer to communicate through this or that medium according to the affinity between them. Thus, in spite of an obvious similarity of conditions, the same spirit will be more explicit through certain mediums solely because they are better suited to it.
Okay. So there is an affinity that allows spirits to have better means of expressing him or herself through a particular medium. They have those things in common. The spirit who is real into biological studies will be more attracted by mediums who does biological studies. Naturally, the spirits who seeks to produce music would likely not be interested in a medium who has no musical aptitude. Now, it's important to say that, and Kardec says that over here, that their aptitudes of that medium may not be known by the medium. Some of those nuances, those things that the spirits be able to perceive in the quality of the medium, is things that aren't being fully expressed by the medium in that present incarnation. Meaning, perhaps, and that I doubt very much, that let's say that I was a good musician in the past, and I have within me the good musician, because what I worked for belongs to me, and it's mine as an eternal spirit. But for this present incarnation, it was decided and agreeable with me that I would not express these abilities. So I'm living this present incarnation without displaying my music abilities whatsoever. But if I've acquired that in the past, I haven't. And although I don't know of it, I don't perceive it in a more obvious way, and a spirit, especially if it's a spirit that dedicates him or herself to music, will perceive that ability in me. And even in my conscious time days, I I don't display any musical abilities in a state of trance, in a mediumistic trance in this case. I'll be able, or better yet, the spirit will be able to utilize that ability that I have that is there, resort somewhere in my perispirit, I believe. I'm not sure it's in the perispirit. And use that. And when I am in a mediumistic trance, I may be a good instrument to produce the music that the spirit wants to produce. So not always that specialty of the medium is reflected by the medium in its conscious state. And sometimes the medium may not even know that has this ability unless or except when it's in a state of altered consciousness that allows those abilities to flourish. And the medium and the spirit may have the ability to see those things, to find those things in us and utilize as a good instrument. But above all things is something Kardec going to talk about that soon is the will, right? The will is extremely important. The intention of the medium. That very often will allow the spirits to use or not use. The medium is a good instrument. The intention, the willingness of the medium to be a good instrument is key for every good mediumistic phenomena to happen. Any questions, comment here?
I think a good example is communication in languages that the medium does not speak, right? Written or spoken communication. So the medium has to have the language, their subconscious, because otherwise the spirit wouldn't be able to produce the communication. So if a medium gives a communication in Russian and he or she doesn't speak Russian in this present life, he or she has spoken Russian in another incarnation. So it is there stored somewhere. So I think that's a good example of how the medium receives something that it's not present in the present incarnation.
Yeah, and the language is a good example because it's easy to understand. If you take, let's say, we who live in the so-called new world, a very new world, very likely all of our incarnation was not in this new world. Most likely, reason would lead us to believe that we incarnate in the old world, old civilizations in the past, right? And spoke languages that is not spoken in this new world. The new world has only three, relatively speaking, new languages of three, yeah. English, Portuguese, Spanish, and French, four languages, right? Rather relatively new languages. So it's very likely that all of us have in our memory bank as eternal spirit other languages, even languages that are no longer spoken in this planet anymore, right? And it's very likely that we have had incarnations in parts of the world that spoke, I don't know, Arabic, some African language, some Persian language, some different anything differently. It's very likely that we have some other language in our memory bank, not only the ones that we speak presently. And the spirits can see it, can retrieve their abilities from us when we are, again, in an altered state of consciousness and express those languages that right now we don't even know if we do have it or not. Okay. 186.
Okay, 186. It would be wrong to expect to receive good kinds of communications of every variety just because we have good writing medium at our disposal. The first condition is undoubtedly to be sure about the source of communications, which means the qualities of the spirit who transmit them. However, we must no less surmise the qualities of the mediumistic instrument offered to the spirit. We must therefore study the nature of the medium as well as that of the spirit, because they are both essential elements for a satisfactory result. There is, however, a third element that is equally important: the intent, the inner thought, and the degree of praiseworthiness of whoever interrogates the spirit. This is easy to understand. In order for a communication to be a good one, it must come from a good spirit. In order for such a good spirit to be able to transmit it, it must have a good instrument at its disposal. In order for it to want to transmit it, the objective must suit it. The spirit who reads the thought surmises whether the proposed question deserves a serious response and whether the person who formulates it is worthy of a response. If not, it does not waste time sowing seeds among the stones. That is when frivolous and mocking spirits take action, because, since they are little concerned about the truth, they do not analyze the subject as they should, and are generally as little scrupulous about the means as about the ends. Let us now summarize the principal kinds of mediumship in the form of a sort of synoptic table comprised of those that have already been described in the preceding chapters, indicating the paragraph numbers in which they are treated in more detail. We have grouped the different mediumistic varieties according to the similarities of cause and effect, but this classification is in no way absolute. Some are found quite often, others to the contrary are rare and even exceptional, a fact which we have been careful to point out. These latter indications were all supplied by the spirits who, furthermore, reviewed this table with particular care and completed it with several observations in new categories, so that we can say that it is now entirely their own work. When we have deemed it worthwhile, we have highlighted the textual observations by using quotation marks. Most of them are by Aratus and Socrates.
Thanks, Arado.
You're welcome.
So, using the example of the skillful musician that Kardec uses, and let's take an acoustic guitar. For us, who like to listen to music, and we may go through a number of acoustic guitars and not notice any difference on them. Some are a little bit more observant. You see some have 7 strings, some have 6 strings. And for us, not make much of a difference. But there are things that can be done with a 7-string guitar that cannot be done with a 6-string guitar. And if you observe more carefully, some of those acoustic guitars may have only metal chords. Some may have only nylon chords. Some have a combination of nylon and metal chords. And it's easy to understand that each one of those will produce different kind of sound. The notes will be a little bit different from one another. And it depends what a good guitar player, acoustic guitar player wants to produce, will select one or another guitar. If they want to produce more music, type of flamingo music, more of that sponge kind of music, they use one kind of guitar that will be different. If you want to do, let's say, American folk songs, the two guitars are quite different, although for us, when you look at them, we probably not going to notice the difference. You're going to hear the difference when it's played. But if you just look at sitting on a table, most of us will not see much difference. But there is a tremendous amount of difference for those who knows what they're looking at. The same thing for a spirit when he's going to select the instrument to express his or her own thought. We will select that instrument that provides what it wants to produce, right? A kind of music, as an example, it wants to do will be more of a Spanish type of music, flamingo music, or more American folk song. There is an instrument that is more appropriate for each. And although if there is just one instrument, the spirit may make use of it and do the best that it can. But of course, it's easy to understand that the quality will not be what it would be if it was a better instrument. I think everybody will agree with that. If you put a cello in the hands of Yo-Yo Ma, he'll play the cello. But if the best possible cello will produce much better music than get a older cello that cannot be tuned right, that the wood has some cracks on it already, you're not going to produce the same quality of music. But out of the good heart of Yo-Yo Ma, you're not just say, yeah, no, I don't touch that instrument. You use what he can and produce what he can. If possible, of course. It may not be possible. It may be an instrument in such a bad shape that I would say, unfortunately, this one I cannot use. This one cannot produce music at all. Right? That plays to us two things regarding the mediums. And when regarding to receiving good mediums to provide good messages. The necessity of the mediumistic development. And the development of the mediumship is not directly related by the ostensive ability of the medium, but the elevation of the moral qualities of the medium. That's why in Spiritism we suggest mediumship with Jesus. A good medium is one who seeks to continuously evolve morally. That'll be the best instrument at the hand of the Spirit who wants to bring enlightened messages. Must that medium be very eloquent, very knowledgeable of the Gospels, of the whatever group of studies it does, being the Hindu, being the Islamic, being the Jewish? It has to be scholar or anything? No. But has to have the intention of learning as much as possible, of elevating oneself as much as possible. And very important, Kardec puts over here the intent. The intention, the will. The intent, the will always comes in the Spirit's book, in the Gospel in accordance with Spiritus, and here it comes again. What is my intention? What do I want? The least selfish, the least proudful is that intention, the more charitable is that intention, the greater is the likelihood of higher spirits being able to utilize that medium as an instrument. So he has two things here. It applies itself to better oneself continuously. And again, it doesn't have to be any scholar or anything. It doesn't have to be the ones who give lectures and give seminars, and you listen to this guy and say, wow, this guy's a damn genius, but doesn't practice what he's speaking out there. It's not going to be a good instrument at the end of the Spirit. But the one has the purest of the intention to be a true servant with the minimum, and I say the minimum because they are humans over here, not perfect, of selfishness and a minimum of pride, you'll be a good instrument at the hand of a higher spirit who want to bring higher messages. And of course, it will follow the one with no intent or no good intentions at all. You become a good instrument at the hands of mocking spirits who doesn't care about quality, just want to show him or herself off often, who just care to have fun, who just care to perhaps fool us. And a spirit with bad, medium, again, a medium with bad, of no good desire and intentions, the good spirit is not going to be able to utilize. But it's still a medium, and it's still an instrument that can still be utilized by some other spirits. There is no empty space. So if a more elevated spirit cannot make use of that spirit because of that medium, I keep saying, oh my God, of that medium because of its low-level intentions, it's prideful, he wants to show off, he wants to see how great of a medium he or she is, he wants to use this mediumship to make some gain, material gain, be it financial or social status, or become attractive to that individual he's interested in, whatever the case may be. May not be useful by good spirits, but it will be a great instrument at the order of frivolous, mocking spirits will be more than ready to make use of that spirit. So intent, the will, is extremely important over here. And Kardec persuaded this is easy to understand. In order for communication to be a good one, it must come from a good spirit. So again, everything comes first from the spirit. The spirit is the one doing the work. The work comes from the spirit, but it needs a good instrument, right? So in order for such a good spirit to be able to transmit it, must have a good instrument at its disposal. Yo-Yo Ma will show all his talents if he has a good cello, well-tuned, that can express all the Yo-Yo Ma's musical abilities. In order for it to want to transmit it, the objective must suit it. And again, going back to the beginning, the thing is that the cello is an animate object, but the medium is not. The medium is a human being, has its own past, has its own history, has its own likings and dislikings, moral qualities or lack of it. And that what will make the difference. But when the individual has the good moral qualities, it will have the want. It will have the desire to be the best possible instrument of the hands of the Spirit. And the Spirit will be able to make good use of it. And a high order spirit will be able to express its high order thoughts and put it into words or speak those things. just about everything comes from the want, from the intent, and the moral, the intent. I'm sorry, and the intent, the will derives from the moral qualities of that individual. The more evolved, morally speaking, the less selfish, the less prideful, the more charitable, the greater affinity with higher spirits. And likewise, the other side is equal true. The more prideful, selfish, seeking material gains will be associated with spirits of the same qualities. Kardec, just as a note over here, use the word of questioning, right? Yeah, when he speaks. The spirit who reads the thought summarizes whether the proposed questions deserve serious responsiveness or whether the person who formulates is worth of a response. And at that time, again, the doctrine was a baby take its first steps, and interrogation is very common, right? Spirits want that we want to know things of the spiritual world. We were very interested in the things that now it's offered to us through this wonderful doctrine, and with the complementary literature we have available, all the psychographies of Chico Xavier, of Divaldo Pereira Francos, and many others as well, provides to us tremendous amount of the answers that those guys was asking in the past. So this interrogation, this questionnaires was very common at the time of Kardec. That's why he puts us over here. And by the question that you ask, it pretty much tells us what is it that we're really seeking, right? No material gains. If you ask the spirit, where can I find the pathway to a gold mine, let's say? Higher spirits are not interested in answering that question. But I guarantee you there are plenty of spirits who will have a feast with individual things like that. And mocking spirits who also have fun at people's vanity will find in those individuals an excellent instrument for their objectives. And then Kardec tells us that what's following over here is the synoptic of the different varieties of mediums, in which most of them we had already spoke about it. Nothing is an absolute, right? You're dealing with human being, not dealing with the exact science, and not dealing with mathematics, right? So even the spirits or mediums who may belong more or less to this or that class may fluctuate as well. Okay, they have to keep that in mind as well. Not, you need to be more flexible with this classification that Kardec creates over here. And again, he lets us know here that he's creating this for a didactic reason, for us to have on a way of putting things in some kind of table, some kind of orders, because science demands it, right? But we need to be flexible and understand that we are dealing here with human beings, not here with individuals with past, individual with own conscience, and it's not an exact mathematical science. And another note also, as we move along, we see here that we very often, rightly so, are not objecting to it at all. We say the medium is an intermediary, period. And I agree 100%, exactly that. But you can also expand the the title of medium, the name of medium, to spirits, to individuals able to experience with greater sensibility the spiritual world and not necessarily be an intermediary. By that I mean a seeing medium. Kardec called it a seeing medium, someone who sees the spiritual world. Is it being an intermediary? Not necessarily. So you could say it's not really a medium. We just want to be a little bit more, to expand a little more the definition of mediums. Although I will agree, medium, by definition, is the one who serves as intermediary. But in here, because you're going to read a lot of things over here of the classification of mediums, that they are not really serve as an intermediary. They could. A seeing medium could serve as an intermediary as if it relates to us, what it's seeing in the spiritual world, and that has a meaningful interest for what is being done at that moment. Let's say in a mediumistic meeting, the mediumship meeting, if I have communication with an spirit, and it's being a difficult dialogue, and a seeing medium tells me, and I'm being the dialoguer, of course, and presents to me what he or she is seeing. Or he's seeing a person, an old person next to him that seems to be trying to help him, or seeing another person next to him who is trying to disturb him, or the environment is such and such, that may be helpful at that moment. So that same medium is being an intermediary at that moment. It's translated to the dialoguer, is being the intermediary to the dialoguer of something that is meaningful for that moment. Again, it's just to be expand a little bit more the definition of what is a medium. Yes, an intermediary. But sometimes just to have that ability to perceive things can be also considered a medium. Okay? Any questions there? And again, there's a lot of reading over here because things that we've seen already, but please, any questions, just stop me. We're going to read one by one and give time for anyone to have any questions.
Okay. Hypnotic table of the different varieties of mediums, 187. We may divide mediums into two large categories. Physical effects mediums, those who have the power to induce physical effects or ostensive manifestations. Continue?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Intellectual effects mediums, those who are more specially able to receive and transmit intelligent communications.
Thanks.
Okay.
So here we have physical mediums. One basically were able to donate ectoplasm. You know, this substance that can be utilized by the spirit to produce physical manifestations, and by definition, manifestations that can be perceived by our physical sensory organs. And we can hear, they can smell, they can touch, okay? And very often those mediums are more than just deliver or producer of this material ectoplasm, but they have a component of participation in the phenomena with their energies or the intentions or the qualities for the manifestation take place. Intellectual effects mediums is one who have the ability to expand its perispirit, to have that alignment, so to say, of the two perispirits of the medium and of the spirit for the transmission of thoughts. And those thoughts transmitted from the spirit to the medium now can be spoken, verbalized, psychophony, or written, psychography, or maybe put in a painting, maybe on a canvas, so to say. Okay?
Okay. All the other varieties may be directly linked in various degrees to one or the other of these two categories, and a few fit into both. By analyzing the various phenomena produced under mediumistic influence, we see that all of them include a physical effect of some kind, and that such effects almost always appear along with an intelligent effect of some kind. It is sometimes difficult to establish a dividing line between both categories, but this does not present a serious problem. In the classification of intellectual effects mediums, we have included those who can more especially serve as intermediary instruments for regular and continuous communications.
It's very important that, again, as I said, we are dealing here with human beings, with spirits, not really exactly science, and the things may have a gray line. And very often there is a gray line. It's not a black and white always. Okay, so in intellectual effect, maybe it's tiny component of physical and vice versa. We're going to classify and put into that category by what predominates, not by the exceptions. Okay?
Okay. 188. Varieties common to all types of mediumship. Sensitive mediums, individuals who are susceptible to sensing the presence of spirits through a general or localized, vague or physical sensation. Most of them distinguish between good and evil spirits by the nature of the resultant sensation. Due to the resultant fatigue, delicate and overly sensitive mediums must abstain from communicating with violent spirits or those who cause a feeling of tiredness. Natural or okay. Yes.
So here is where I said that you need to kind of expand our definition of mediums. And Kardec used a very expanded definition of mediums when he created this variety of mediums, because the sensitive mediums, as you can see over here, it's not really an intermediary, right? It senses things, it feels things, and very often is able to, he or she, I'm sorry, is able to qualify the energies that he senses being good or bad, being violent, and those mediums have to be careful, because being so sensitive, they may get into fatigue. Those dense, difficult energies may clash with the good energies of the spirit and give them a feeling of tiredness and things like that. Which we hear quite often from mediums, especially in the kind of work that we do. There is a rescue mission that we work with needy spirits, suffering spirits, that some mediums may sense the energies of that spirit and come to the meeting already carrying that, or feeling tired the whole day, or feeling a little bit depressed the whole day. That's because they already sensing the quality of the spirits who have already approximated to them for the work that is going to be done. Again, just interrupt me if you have any questions there, because most of this is, again, a synoptic, is a recap of things.
Okay. Natural or unconscious mediums, those who induce phenomena spontaneously without the intervention of their own will, and most of the time without even being aware of it. facultative or voluntary mediums, those who have the ability to induce phenomenon through an act of their own will. As great as this will may be, they can do nothing if the spirits refuse to come, which proves the intervention of an exterior power.
Okay. Well, a natural conscious medium is the one who opens him or herself to a mediumist trance, not specifically guiding to receive one or another thing, and things happen naturally. The facultative or voluntary medium is one again, puts themselves in the state of mediumistic trance, but with a guided objective. I want to receive spirits of this or this thing, of music, or for music, or for science, something like that. Amongst the natural unconscious, there is the big danger that if the mediumship is not educated, it may even happen spontaneously. The medium may go into that minimally required altered state of consciousness and become an instrument of a spirit at an undesirable time, undesirable place, and could become dangerous. So the necessity of educate the medium is very important to avoid that to happen. And Kardec puts a note over here, in parentheses, not really from Kardec, it's probably from Erastus or Socrates, that regardless of kind of mediumship, everything requires the spirit to intend to want to use that instrument. Otherwise, the instrument is not going to be used, which again, it proves that that the work is being done by a third party and not by the medium, him or herself. And now we're going to go through a series of physical effects mediums, and I don't think there is much that I can say here, but just read almost.
Okay. 189, special effect, physical effects varieties. Typological mediums, those through whose influence noises and raps are produced. A common variety in which the medium's will may or may not participate. Motor mediums.
Just a note over here,
Mhm.
that the medium will or may not participate, meaning that the medium has ability to produce an excess amount of ectoplasm, and the spirit may utilize that ectoplasm to produce noises without the participation of the medium. The medium may not even be aware that he or she is a medium, that he or she is donating the necessary substance for those noises to appear.
Okay. Motor mediums, those who induce inert objects to move, very common.
Okay.
Where am I?
Mediums of displacement or suspension.
Mediums for displacements and suspensions. Those who induce the displacement of inert objects or their suspension in the air without any point of support. They are more or less rare, depending on the intensity of the phenomenon they can precipitate. There are also some who can levitate, but they are rarer still. Musical effects mediums, those who induce the playing of musical instruments without contact, very rare. Mediums for apparitions, those who induce fluidic or tangible apparitions that are visible to those watching, very rare. Mediums for apportations, those who serve spirits for the carrying of physical objects, a variety of motor and displacement medium, exceptional.
And so just a comment amongst those. Displacement, musical, operations, and apportations. All of them are rare. But one thing that is very important here, that besides the rarity of the medium themselves, one thing that is very important is the quality of the ambient for those phenomena to take place. Even if there is a good medium with all the good intentions of all the abilities, let's say, to produce the apportations or any one of those, if the ambient does not favor, it's not going to happen. So all those things are very rare. One, because the mediums themselves are rare, but also to have the right medium in the right ambient, when all the minds there are also favoring the phenomenon take place, is quite rare. Getting a place, let's just put a small number, 15 people, we would have to have those 15 people in the proper state of mind. If one of them is more worried about the Yankees game, the other one is more worried about what time this thing's gonna end, my girlfriend's waiting for me outside, it's not gonna happen. No, if there is 150 people and 2 or 3 are those kind of thoughts, it may happen because there is another 147 with a good state of mind that overpower those 3 bad minds at that moment. But in a small group of 15, 1 is a big number already. In the number 105th, 1 is a lesser number. So to have those things, those phenomena to happen, is required a good medium with the right state of mind, able to produce. But it's also necessary the right ambient. The sum of the energies created by our mind must favor those things to take place. This is very important.
Okay. Nocturnal mediums, those who obtain certain physical effects in darkness. Following is a spirit's response about whether or not these mediums may be regarded as a separate variety. Certainly, these mediums may represent a specialty, but the phenomenon is due more to the environmental conditions than to the nature of the medium or spirit. I should add that some mediums escape this particular influence of the environment, and that with a little practice, most nocturnal mediums could produce the phenomenon in both light and darkness. This variety of medium is not very common, and we must make it clear that it is due to this requirement for darkness that allows for complete freedom to employ trickery, ventriloquism, and acoustic tubes, by which charlatans have frequently duped the credulous by passing themselves off as mediums in order to get money. But it does not matter. Tricksters in rooms, like tricksters in public squares, will be cruelly unmasked, and the spirit will show them that they do wrong in interfering in their work. Yes, I repeat, certain charlatans shall be openly and very rudely exposed, so that their role as fake mediums will end. It is only a matter of time. Gratis.
Okay. So the first thing we wanted to question, right? This nocturnal mediums, why would a medium only be able to work at night? And sounds weird. It's rare, extremely rare, it says over here. Okay. Some individuals may not be able to engage in a state of meditation to allow themselves to go into that minimum required state of trance for the main phenomenon to take place, and on a relax enough to take place in darkness, in the absence of light. Personally, I don't quite understand the necessity of the darkness, but it happens, and it's very rare. But it places a quite danger that in darkness, it's easier for charlatans to employ the trickery, right? Ventriloquism, acoustic tubes. Charlatans may really make use of the absence of light to put out all their trickeries and deceive people. So I think, and this is me personally think, that it brings a red flag. And it may be unfair for the true nocturnal mediums, the ones who really have the right intention, has no trickery, has no ill intentions whatsoever. But just by the fact that they come and say, oh, I can only work in darkness, I cannot work in day, it brings a red flag. And I'm sorry to say that, but is it prejudice? Maybe. But as Erasmus put over here, it opens room for the possibility of trickery, of the possibility of charlatanism. And we need to protect ourselves, and we need to protect the doctrine itself from any kind of charlatanism. But Erasmus says, don't worry about it. They will be revealed. Okay, yes, I repeat, certain charlatans shall be openly and very rudely exposed so that the roles as fake mirrors will end. It's only a matter of time. And you can fool a few for a long time, you can fool many for a short time, but you cannot fool all the time. Eventually, the truth will prevail. And I think that for us, in order to protect ourselves from become trapped by deceiving spirits, protecting the doctrine itself, to put a little red flag on those kind of things, to me makes sense. And I know that some good mediums may suffer that, but again, all good medicine has some side effects. There is no good medicine with absolutely zero side effects, right? And I think that is to put that red flag is a medicine that may carry side effects. But that's the way I think here. Okay?
Okay. Pneumatographical mediums, those who obtain direct writing, a very rare phenomenon and especially easy to imitate by charlatanism. Contrary to our own opinion, the spirits have insisted that we place direct writing among the phenomena of the physical order because, according to them, intelligent effects are those that a spirit produces by utilizing the elements present in the medium's brain, which is not the case with direct writing. The medium's action in this instant is entirely physical, while in the writing medium, even if completely mechanical, the brain always plays an active role.
The comment is very interesting, right?
Mm.
And it's contrary to our own opinion. It's saying over here that Kardec is kind of disagreeing with the spirits over here, but it's sticking with the position of the spirits. Pneumatographical mediums also produce the direct writing. It's qualified as a physical phenomenon because there is no participation of the mediums in him or herself. It's a piece of paper placed inside of a drawer somewhere else and leave there for some time. And when you open, the piece of paper has something written on it. I'd rather to ask Kardec why is this contrary to his opinion there, right? I would love to hear. I'm sure you have a very eloquent answer for this question, but I don't know why he said that. It might be in some of his posthumous work or somewhere. But I would love to hear why Kardec says that contrary to our opinion. the spirit having ceased, so that we place direct right among the phenomena of physical water. Because to me, it's pretty obvious that it's physical. But I'd love to hear what Kardec has to say to that. Let's continue here.
Okay. Healing mediums, those who have the ability to cure or alleviate illnesses by the imposition of hands or through prayer.
Which comes from both the ability of the medium as an individual self-dominate his own energies and associate her own energy with much greater yet the energies that come from the spiritual world, provided by mediums who have a good understanding of pathology, of the human body, of human energies to assist in this healing process.
Okay. This faculty is not essentially mediumistic because all true believers possess it, whether they are mediums or not. It is frequently no more than the overexcitation of the magnetic power, which is strengthened, if needed, by the participation of good spirits. Developed mediums, those who have the ability to develop the writing faculty in others through their influence. There is more of a magnetic effect than a mediumistic one per se, for it does not indicate the actual intervention of a spirit. In any case, it belongs to the order of physical effects.
Okay, so here Kardec is expanding even more the definition of mediumship here, right? And he's even going to more of a magnetism, more of a mesmerism here, with both the cure, the ability to heal, right? And then the developer medium to have the ability of influence colleagues in develop the ability for the writing faculty in them. And Kardec puts over here, there is more of a magnetic effect than the mediumistic one per se. But so Kardec is being very, very flexible, really expanding the definition of mediums over here. And it's putting all this in the category of physical effects, which is that interesting. It makes sense because magnetism is something physical, right? That even trees may have these magnetic energies. I think I'm going to stop here, 12:27, and we'll continue with intellectual effects mediums next month. Is there any questions, any comment? Any corrections? All right.
Next Sunday, we are going to have our Q&A session. Okay, it's the long weekend for Memorial Day, but we'll be having our regular meeting on Sunday. We'll be closed on Monday for Memorial Day. We won't have our activities at the center. That's next week. Tomorrow we'll be there.
Okay. What will be next week? The next Sunday again, Ron?
Next Sunday, Q&A.
Yeah, okay. Or something else. Okay, what do we have here for us?
Carol.
Carol is there?
Yeah. Hey. Hi. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Elmo, for hosting for us today. Thank you, John, as well. And thank you, Sarita, for reading for us also today, and everyone who is here and present and participating. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together for our studies of the Mediums book, which would be Chapter 15 and 16, writing or psychographic mediums and special mediums. Prescient mediums may be able to intuitively see the natural cascade of events to predict the future. These mediums may also be very inspired by discarnate spirit guides and helpers who assist with this advanced perception. There can be various degrees of aptitudes of the spirit and the medium, which may align. Intention and will are important. Artists, writers, researchers, and historians generally have affinity with spirits related to their field. In our memory banks, we all may have had other languages used in past lives. We may remember, we may not remember, which could be useful in modern communications through the spirits. The medium is a bridge between the spirit and physical worlds. The two categories are physical effects mediums and intellectual effects mediums. The right ambient is important generally in mediumship. Also, the magnetic effects may also be present. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center SGNY and all spiritist centers throughout the world that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves now to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.